Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about the concept of ghost in the machine, which was proposed by British philosopher Gilbert Ryle. This concept is basically related to a fact that many scientists, and including the discipline of psychology itself, thinks that there's a separation between the mind and the body, that there are two separated entities more or less related to another. So this philosopher proposed that it is an error in thinking because the mind itself is rather an expression of what's going on inside your body, inside your brain. It is not something separated, hence the ironic description as ghost in a machine, like there's some little person in your brain directing your willpower. So if we go with the logic of this argument, then the mind itself perhaps doesn't really exist in the common sense, but as said before, it's just an expression of what's going on in your body, what's going on in your brain, that perhaps is just a reflection of your brain's activity. However, this concept can go even further. As an example, scientists cannot really prove the existence of consciousness. Like when it comes to mapping different abilities, different skills of what human being can do, sure, we can kind of map which certain brain areas are responsible for these activities, or rather what brain pattern of your activity represents a certain skill or certain doing of your body. But we cannot find this concept of consciousness. We cannot find the existence of consciousness in your brain. However, in my opinion, the consciousness itself could be explained in terms of Gestalt psychology. So the consciousness is just a sum of your brain activity, is the sum of different parts contributing to the existence of consciousness. So in instance, when you take a separated part of this consciousness of your brain, it doesn't really explain the consciousness, as an example, the ability to speak, but rather you can find some descriptions related to the consciousness. However, the whole concept of consciousness is this representation of all doings of your brain, all that your brain is capable of. Going further with this, I think the mind and the consciousness itself arises because of the relationship between your body and the environment. If this distinction wasn't here, wasn't present, then you wouldn't say that you are conscious, because you wouldn't know that the unconsciousness exists. And if you didn't know that the unconsciousness exists, then how you could say that the consciousness exists, if that makes sense. So if not the stimulus from the environment, if not the stimulus from, as an example, interaction with other people, then your brain wouldn't really work in the same manner. Perhaps you could say, what about dreams? Like, during dreams, you can produce extremely bizarre pictures and images and scenarios. However, many scientists actually propose that dreaming and whatever occurs in your brain during the sleeping time is actually the processing of all the stimulus that you weren't aware of during your waking time, but obviously everything still comes into your perception. But it's quite inefficient to be aware of just everything, to be aware of all the possible data that comes from the environment. Hence we develop this function of filtering and focusing and attention, etc., etc. And so all the unprocessed stimulus still goes to your brain. And so again, going back to this initial argument about ghosts in a machine, as I said before, the consciousness or the mind itself probably arises because of this relationship with other people and their environment and whatever is going on outside of your brain. Then many aspects of the psychology itself are quite wrong. They are biased. They are not proving that the mind itself exists, but it's just a perspective. It's just a way of describing what's going on inside your body. In the same manner as we can say about the computer works because these different components are working together, they are connected, and there is an interaction between them. There's no ghost inside the computer that makes the computer work, but it is the whole interaction of different components, just as probably inside our brain. Of course, it is just mere idea, a thought. So in the same manner, scientists probably cannot prove the existence of consciousness because the consciousness arises because of this interaction between different parts of your brain, interaction with the environment, etc., etc. In an extreme, we could say that maybe science is looking for consciousness in the wrong place. What if the consciousness isn't produced by the brain itself, but as I've said, is produced because of this interaction with the environment? And if not this interaction, the consciousness wouldn't really exist. There is some research going on the consciousness. I've provided the link in the description, which apparently found where the consciousness is produced, and they found this process on a quantum level. The consciousness arises because there is some vibration going on in the microtubes inside your neurons, which is, extremely micro level, which cannot really be represented in the direct manner, but it's like a very basic of your brain activity. So if it is on the quantum level, then as we know from quantum physics, on the quantum level, you cannot really distinguish between objects. Everything is like a field of different particles, different waves, and there is no distinctions between your body and the environment. So in this scenario, if the consciousness is created on this level, on this quantum level, then the consciousness isn't really separated from the body itself or from the environment itself, but everything is rather connected. If, again, they can prove that the consciousness is created on this quantum level. And so, all these ideas are just, philosophical thoughts, something to consider as being a possibility, being a probability, because it's like a wordplay. It's not something for you to accept as a fact, but simply something to consider, which might or might not change your attitude towards the environment and other people. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Thank you.